One day, Kashiwata and Oda stare at each other over a game of Old Maid. One stare is blank, while the other burns with determination. Some of their classmates grow curious and start to watch. It turns out Oda was the one who challenged Kashiwata to the game, hoping to finally prove that he can hide his expressions and not wear his heart on his sleeve. Oda slightly pushes one card forward above the others, hoping that Kashiwata will take it. Kashiwata notices that Oda is trying to bait her into picking that card, but she instead chooses another and secures the win. No one is surprised that Oda lost, since his expressions were a huge giveaway throughout the game. Frustrated, Oda challenges Kashiwata to another round of Old Maid, claiming that the earlier match was merely a warm-up, and that the next one will be the real deal. He manages to get Kashiwata to play again. Smiling confidently, he pushes the Joker card forward so it stands out a little more. This time, he believes his strategy is foolproof. Instead of trying to hide his expressions, he'll express exactly what he's feeling to confuse her instead. However, the results remain the same. Kashiwata wins again without so much as a twitch. Despite his classmates telling him to give up, Oda stubbornly refuses and challenges Kashiwata to yet another game, proudly declaring that this time he'll be the victor since he can now read her mind. Kashiwata accepts the challenge, shuffles the deck, and deals the cards, all with her usual blank expression. Glancing briefly at his own hand, Oda shifts his focus to her, studying her breathing, her expression, and any tiny movement that might give her away. But he sees nothing. Still, he feels confident that her expression will change when she either draws the Joker or when he touches it from her hand. Carefully, he picks a card and looks at her face. To his dismay, he can't read a single thing from her expression, and when he finally looks at the card, it turns out to be the Joker. He glances back at Kashiwata, but her expression hasn't even shifted to one of triumph. Oda stares at her more intently, convinced that she must be gazing into another dimension that allows her to win every time. He leans closer, staring deeply into her eyes. Oda notices she's drawn the Joker and cheers, only to feel confused when he sees her trembling slightly. He assumes she's shaking with laughter and grows frustrated, wondering why she's amused instead of dismayed. Angrily, he accuses her of mocking him. In the end, Kashiwata is declared the overall winner. Another new day starts at school, and Kashiwata calmly walks through the halls when a toy spider suddenly drops right in front of her. She claims she was surprised, but her expression remains completely neutral. Oda reels the toy spider back, frustrated that his plan to startle Kashiwata didn't work. He tries several more times throughout the day to get a reaction from her, but nothing seems to work. During their break, Oda complains about his failed attempts to Tadakoro and Sada. Both his friends try to talk him out of bothering Kashiwata, but they end up listening to Oda explain his reason for wanting to startle her. His story takes them all the way back to the opening ceremony during spring. As he walked toward the school gate that day, Oda was busy fending off a crow. Just when he thought he'd gotten rid of it, the crow pooped on his shoulder before flying away. That was when he noticed Kashiwata nearby, who, unfortunately, also got hit by the crow. In fact, she had it worse than he did, since the droppings landed right on her head, while his were only on his uniform. Oda found it strange that Kashiwata didn't seem to care about what happened. He followed her into the school and later discovered that they were classmates. From that day on, he became curious about what could elicit more expressions from her, which led to his ongoing mission to get her to react. His friends give him worried looks after hearing his explanation, and Sada warns him not to overdo it with Kashiwata. Finally, lunchtime arrives and Kashiwata gracefully unpacks her meal. She takes a generous sip of her drink when Oda suddenly declares with a proud grin that he swapped out her green tea with vinegar and that she must be suffering right now. When he looks at her, however, her face remains perfectly neutral. Oda begins to doubt himself, wondering if he made a mistake or if she's just good at hiding her suffering. To check, he takes a sip from his own bottle of green tea, only to be met with the sour taste of vinegar. Horrified, he spits it out immediately. Kashiwata makes a small sound and visibly begins to shake, though her face stays blank as ever. Oda accuses her of laughing, and Kashiwata calmly explains that she noticed him smirking earlier when she got her drink. So when he wasn't looking, she secretly switched their bottles. Meanwhile, Oda's friends watch their exchange, realizing that Oda is actually the one being teased, and that Kashiwata knows how much power she has over him. Suddenly, Kashiwata grabs Oda's sleeve and quietly admits that she likes him. Oda immediately turns bright red and faces away from her, muttering aloud that she doesn't mean it in a romantic sense. However, Kashiwata calmly clarifies that she does mean it romantically. Thinking she's mocking him, Oda quickly steps back. His reaction makes Kashiwata sad, though her face fails to show it properly. She asks if he dislikes her, and he stammers that he does because she's so expressionless, and it creeps him out. Kashiwata slowly moves closer, causing Oda to grow increasingly nervous and avoid her gaze. Still, Kashiwata keeps looking directly at his face. When she finally straightens up, she tells him that she's relieved because his true feelings are always written all over his face. Oda's nervousness shifts into embarrassed anger as he continues to call Kashiwata creepy, vowing that one day he'll be the one to scare her. Kashiwata quietly returns to her seat. Oda's friends, who had been watching nearby, notice a small smile form on her lips. They wonder if she's happy, but since she's facing away from Oda, he doesn't see that she finally showed a little emotion. Another day during lunch, Oda gathers his friends for a strategy meeting on how to take down Kashiwata. His friends refuse to be part of any of his plans, but Oda insists that he'll just observe her for now. His friends question why he even called them over if he already has a plan of action. Ignoring their concerns, Oda explains that he's certain Kashiwata will eventually break her stone-faced expression, and all he has to do is keep watch until it happens. Sada decides to lend a hand, saying he's also curious about Kashiwata. He teases Oda, saying that Oda seems to be the most curious about her, and that, as a good friend, he should help him out. Tadokoro joins in the teasing, which only makes Oda more flustered. The next day, Kashiwata is the first to arrive in class. The boys stalk her from the doorway, surprised that she's there so early. As they watch, she pulls out one of her textbooks and starts to read. Sada notices that it's normal behavior, but Oda urges him to look closer. The boys notice her softly humming to herself, her head swaying from side to side. Oda believes this is something she only does when she's sure no one else is around. Sensing a presence behind her, Kashiwata turns toward the door, but the boys quickly duck out of sight. She returns to her book, and the boys quietly sigh in relief that they weren't caught. As the day progresses, Oda keeps a keen eye on Kashiwata, which causes him to be called out by the teacher several times for either not following instructions or accidentally causing minor incidents. During lunch, the three boys even push their tables together to surround Kashiwata. However, she remains completely expressionless throughout the meal, making Ota increasingly frustrated. Sada pulls out his notes and points out that he noticed she looks slightly flushed during lunch and that she blinks 15 times per minute. Tadokoro is shocked at how dedicated his friends are to observing her and nervously reminds them that they still have cleaning duties and suggests they can continue observing her then. They soon learn that Kashiwata will be cleaning the pool with several other students. At the pool area, Kashiwata diligently scrubs the floor of the pool while the students around her complain about the tedious work. Oda and his friends quietly approach and stop by the fence to watch. Suddenly, one of the students shouts that there's a raccoon nearby. Eager for a distraction, the others drop their cleaning tools and rush toward where the raccoon was supposedly spotted, but Kashiwata stays behind, continuing her assigned task. Oda and his friends watch her, impressed by her focus. However, the truth is that Kashiwata is also curious about the raccoon, but she's just too shy to admit it. While Oda's eyes remain trained on her, Sada notes that Kashiwata usually spends most of her time alone at school. After a short pause, Oda steps out into the open, wearing a mischievous grin, and announces that he'll reward her for working so hard. He aims the hose at her and tries to spray her with water, but Kashiwata skillfully dodges. Oda is furious and confused by how she managed to avoid it so easily. In his frustration, Oda accidentally sprays himself instead, soaking his clothes. He immediately blames her and tries to spray her again, but she dodges once more. Suddenly, another stream of water hits him from behind. He turns to see Sada and Tadokoro armed with water guns, grinning mischievously. Tadokoro even offers one to Kashiwata, much to Oda's dismay. The playful chaos quickly spreads, and soon they're all splashing water at each other with hoses and water guns, though Oda keeps insisting he's still mad. Sada manages to hit Oda square in the face with a well-aimed shot, distracting him from targeting Kashiwata for a brief moment. Kashiwata watches them silently and suddenly runs toward them, joining in on the fun. At one point, Kashiwata gets hit with water by Oda, but Oda is quickly sprayed by all three of them. They continue to have fun splashing each other, though most of the attacks end up targeting Ota. Eventually, he collapses from exhaustion and realizes they've all gained up on him. He jumps back to his feet and chases after them as they tease him about how easy of a target he is. While making his rounds, teacher Onuwarada hears the commotion and bursts into the pool area. He catches Kashiwata, Ota, and the others playing with water guns and immediately scolds them for fooling around during cleaning time. The group tries to run away, but Onuwarada manages to grab Tadokoro by the collar. Soon after, all four of them are kneeling in front of him as he lectures them for running on the pool floor. As punishment, the four are made to clean the pool again, even though Oda and his friends weren't assigned to that area in the first place. Oda grumbles about the situation, while Kashiwata quietly walks up to him and thanks him. Oda's face turns bright red as he tries to hide his expression, but Kashiwata moves closer to get a better look, causing him to flinch and run away from her. Sada and Tadokoro watch from the side, once again noticing the faint smile forming on Kashiwata's face. Meanwhile, the other students are still off somewhere searching for the raccoon. One day, Oda challenges Kashiwata to guess which of his hands holds a piece of candy. Kashiwata touches both hands, studying his expression, and quickly figures it out. When she tries to pry it open, Oda stubbornly keeps it shut. During their swimming PE class, Oda impresses everyone with how fast he can swim. Even the teacher compliments him. After finishing the boys' relay, the teacher calls for the girls to take their places, and Oda's eyes immediately land on Kashiwata. As the boys talk among themselves, Oda confidently says that Kashiwata probably can't swim. However, Sada points out that she might actually be good at it since she looks so calm, even if that's just her usual blank expression. Once the girls start swimming, they realize Kashiwata isn't with the group. Her face is down and it looks like she is drowned. The teacher rushes over and manages to lift her, only to find that Kashiwata's face remains completely calm. She explains that she wasn't drowning but swimming, though the teacher clearly doesn't believe her. The teacher approaches Oda, asking him to teach Kashiwata how to swim while he supervises the rest of the class. Oda looks displeased, but the teacher insists so that Kashiwata can join the relay later. Back in the water, Kashiwata quietly thanks Oda for agreeing to teach her, but Oda begins walking away, refusing to do it. Sada offers to take over instead, and Oda instantly returns, insisting that he's the only one qualified to teach her. He starts off by teaching her how to kick to move forward. At first, it seems like he's genuinely teaching her, easing his friend's doubts. However, Oda begins to smirk because he's planning to let her go so she'll panic. After waiting for the right time, Oda releases his hold. Kashiwata's face remains blank, but her body starts flailing wildly because she's actually drowning. In a panic, she grabs onto Oda's torso to keep herself from sinking, but Oda struggles to break free. In the chaos, she accidentally clings to his swimming shorts instead. Tadokoro watches from the side with a worried expression, muttering that he cannot comprehend what they are doing anymore. When Oda climbs out of the pool, Tadokoro notices his swim shorts have been stretched out. Oda swears revenge for the humiliation, but before he can say more, Sada points out that Kashiwata is up next for the girls' relay. Oda stops to look at her, and to everyone's surprise, Kashiwata actually swims, though her form is awkward. Oda's friends tease him because he seems a little proud of her, which he quickly denies. He leaves to fix his swim trunks, but before he can, people begin shouting in alarm. Turning back, he sees commotion in the water and immediately dives in to save Kashiwata. When they resurface, he checks if she's alright, but Tadokoro nervously points out that Oda's swimwear is floating away. The girls scream and Oda curses Kashiwata for putting him in yet another humiliating situation. The next day, Oda tells Kashiwata that he's prepared a present for her. He drops a grasshopper on her desk. To his annoyance, she remains expressionless, though in truth, she's terrified of insects. He tries again with the pop-up toy, but even when she's startled, her face stays blank. Finally, Oda puts on a mask to scare her. But instead of screaming, Kashiwata begins to tremble in silent laughter while still maintaining her stoic expression. Before he can try anything else, Tabuchi calls him outside. She sternly tells him to stop bothering Kashiwata, saying his actions are bordering on bullying. Oda insists that she's misunderstanding the situation. Tabuchi demands an explanation, and Sada blurts out that Oda only bothers Kashiwata because he likes her. Embarrassed, Oda shakes Sada and loudly denies it, but Tabuchi remains unconvinced. She warns him that if Kashiwata ever stops coming to school, it will be his fault. Sada advises him to tone down his antics, and Tadokoro agrees, noting that Tabuchi can be terrifying. As they discuss how serious and uptight Tabuchi is, Oda grows increasingly annoyed that someone is watching his every move. He spots Kashiwata leaving the classroom and tries to bother her, only for Tabuchi to grab him by the shoulder, reminding him coldly that she's always watching. Later in class, the group notices something unusual since Tabuchi seems to be watching Kashiwata instead of Oda. When Oda calls her out on it while she was stalking her, he reasons that she must be curious about Kashiwata too because she's weird. Tabuchi denies it, claiming she's only looking out for her because Oda won't stop pestering her. Oda looks at her unconvinced and accuses her of hiding something, which quickly escalates into an argument between the two. Sada adds his own observation and asks why Tabuchi has been following Kashiwata around. Almost shyly, Tabuchi admits that she's a fan of Kashiwata. She explains that she feels happy whenever Kashiwata slips up and shows even the slightest bit of emotion. However, she complains that Oda keeps blocking her view whenever he tries to bother Kashiwata. With full seriousness, she declares that as the president of the Kashiwata fan club, Oda must ask for her permission before interacting with Kashiwata. Oda stares at her in disbelief, convinced she's some kind of psycho. They begin to argue about the so-called fan club until Tabuchi proudly claims that she can actually read Kashiwata's expressions. Oda is shocked, and Tabuchi smugly adds that she reached that level only after spending countless hours observing her idol, something Oda could never match. Later, Sada enters a nearby room and finds Kashiwata hiding a small gap. Tabuchi immediately appears, offering a hand to help her up while assuring her there's no need to be afraid, even though Kashiwata was never afraid to begin with. Back in the hall, Tabuchi resumes her quarrel with Oda, claiming that Kashiwata's soul is silently crying out in frustration because of his constant harassment. Kashiwata calmly asks if Tabuchi is really her fan. Tabuchi freezes, embarrassed at being found out. Flustered, she insists that she's just an admirer and not some creepy stalker. Oda teases that Kashiwata probably thinks she's a total creep now that the secret's out, leaving Tabuchi visibly crushed. But then Kashiwata approaches her and softly says that she finds Tabuchi an interesting person and that she'd like it if they could be friends instead. In an instant, Tabuchi's mood soars. She hugs Kashiwata tightly and, with a victorious grin, declares that she now holds the title of being Kashiwata's friend, while Oda is nothing more than an insect. As the two of them argue, Kashiwata suddenly admits she doesn't really want to be Oda's friend. She doesn't finish her sentence, however, and her expression turns faintly shy, leaving both Oda and Tabuchi puzzled about what she meant. Oda's friends quietly note that the two rivals might actually be more alike than they realize. One day during lunch, the cafeteria announces that yakisoba bread is available, and every boy rushes to the counter. Oda manages to snag one first and eats happily, while Tadakoro watches in envy, amazed by how fast Oda always gets what he wants. Sada notes that he's never seen Oda bring a lunchbox before and wonders aloud if his parents ever made him one. Kashiwata overhears their conversation as she quietly observes her own lunchbox. The next day, even before their class is dismissed for lunch break, Oda dashes out of the room to make sure he's first in line at the cafeteria. But as he rounds the corner, he finds Kashiwata standing in front of him. He recalls that she had asked to go to the restroom earlier and quickly realizes she might have planned this. He tries to move past her, but Kashiwata shifts her position, blocking his way every time. Soon, the other students rush past them, making Oda miss out on all the good bread. He ends up with something he doesn't even like. He convinces himself that Kashiwata did this as payback for all the times he had annoyed her, and he vows to get even. The next day, as soon as the lunch bell rings, Oda bolts from his seat again. But once more, Kashiwata is waiting in the hallway. He smirks confidently, declaring that she won't stop him this time. Kashiwata looks a little shy, then glances around as if searching for something. The gesture confuses Oda until she suddenly holds out a lunchbox. She tells him that he can have it if he wants, admitting that she had made one for him the day before but was too nervous to hand it over. As students begin to rush past them again, Oda grows flustered. Stubbornly, he insists he doesn't want it anyway, saying it probably doesn't taste good. Tadakoro immediately asks if he can have it instead. This makes Oda snatch the lunchbox and declare that it's his. When he finally opens it, he's disappointed to find only apple slices. He complains, wishing he'd just bought bread. Still, Kashiwata quietly smiles to herself. Later that week, Oda comes up with another scheme to make Kashiwata show emotion. He plans to throw a paper airplane at her right when a jack-in-the-box pops out, hoping to catch her off guard from both directions. When Kashiwata opens the toy, she immediately turns to Oda, ruining his timing. The paper airplane falls short and lands on the floor, only to be stepped on by Tabuchi, who walks over to gently brush Kashiwata's hair. As Oda trudges back to his seat, he notices two colorful hair ties left on a nearby desk. His friends comment on how pretty and probably expensive they look. Oda, however, just smirks, already plotting how to use them to spook Kashiwata. Oda walks to the window holding one of the hair ties and teases that he's going to throw it out. To everyone's surprise, a strong gust of wind suddenly blows it right out of his hand. Tabuchi immediately snaps at him to go get it back, but Oda protests that it's impossible to retrieve. Before their argument can continue, they notice that Kashiwata looks unusually downcast. When she removes her hands, there are tears brimming in her eyes. Oda is frozen. He can't believe that he's actually seeing her cry. A moment later, Kashiwata leaves the classroom. Sada quietly suggests that the hair tie might have meant something special to her. Tabuchi then shares that Kashiwata once told her those hair ties were a gift from her grandmother. Without a word, Oda bolts out of the room. When Kashiwata later returns, the boys ask if she's seen him, but she shakes her head. Tabuchi scowls, muttering that he probably went on a spiritual journey to purify his heart, while Sada simply guesses he felt awkward and went home. By the time school ends, the light wind has turned into a raging storm. Sada and Tadakoro head out only to spot Oda out in the rain, soaked and searching for something. When they confront him, he stubbornly denies looking for the hair tie, but his friends see right through him. Without hesitation, Sada offers to help, and soon all three are combing the school grounds, battling wind and rain as they search. The longer it goes on, the guiltier Oda feels for losing something precious to Kashiwata. Just as he's about to give up, Tadakoro shouts that he's found it. They rush over, and Sada explains that it had fallen near the front gate and ended up in the lost and found box. He hands the muddy hair tie to Oda, who immediately makes his way to Kashiwata's house. When Kashiwata opens the door, Ota, drenched from the storm, awkwardly holds out the hair tie along with a new one he bought to make up for its condition. Suddenly, Kashiwata's grandmother appears from inside the house. Oda freezes in shock since he assumed she had passed away based on Kashiwata's reaction to losing the accessory. The grandmother, unfazed, tells him to wait and disappears to get towels so he can dry off. Oda demands to know why Kashiwata was crying if her grandmother is still alive. Calmly, Kashiwata replies that she just got dirt in her eyes. Furious at the misunderstanding, Oda mutters something about it being all Tabuchi's fault, but when Kashiwata smiles faintly and promises to treasure the hair tie, he turns bright red and runs off in embarrassment, ignoring Kashiwata's invitation to dry off inside. Meanwhile, elsewhere on campus, Tabuchi is also searching through the rain for the lost hair tie. Oda suddenly asks for Kashiwata's Lime ID and she adds him as a friend. Tadokoro teases him about it, but Oda insists it's for a competition. He explains that he and Kashiwata will send each other messages during class and whoever gets caught first loses. Kashiwata quietly agrees to the terms. She is happy since Oda is now on her Lime list. Class begins and Oda smirks confidently at her from his seat. He types his first message informing her that she has to take an exam and that the teacher has listed her name on the board. Kashiwata glances up at the board only to see that there's nothing written there. Meanwhile, Oda is already thinking of his next move. He mutters under his breath, unaware that he said it aloud. The teacher, Oniwurata, immediately calls him out, earning laughter from the entire class. As the lecture continues, Oda sends her a barrage of funny lime stamps, the human-faced potato and Crusher Takeda. Kashiwata stares at the images in silence. Oda is shocked that they didn't cause her to smile because those were his best stamps. What he doesn't know is that Kashiwata is actually amused. Oniwurata catches Oda and smacks him on the head, scolding him for not paying attention. Oda's face burns red from embarrassment. Moments later, she receives a scary image from Oda. Her body trembles, but her face remains completely neutral. Oda, misreading the reaction, assumes she's laughing and sends a photo of her edited to make her appear bald. Kashiwata begins to shake, but her face stays calm. Oda frowns since he isn't sure what the shaking means. Then a paper ball hits Oda. When he opens it, it turns out to be a warning from Tabuchi. Annoyed, Oda scribbles a reply and tosses it at her. Tabuchi unfolds it and her eyes widen when she reads that Oda and Kashiwata have been exchanging messages on Lime. She can't believe Oda managed to get Kashiwata's Lime ID before she did, and she collapses onto her desk. Oda looks at Tabuchi before noticing that Kashiwata is finally responding on Lime. She asks him if he has ever thought of an answer. Oda is confused until he realizes she's referring to her confession. His face reddens and he begins to panic. He suddenly stands up, ready to shout, but Oniwurata is already beside him, scolding him for fiddling with his phone. He even remarks that Oda was grinning and accuses him of looking at inappropriate sites. Oda immediately denies it and tries to pin the blame on Kashiwata, but Oniwurata refuses to believe him since Kashiwata has been quiet. From Oniwurata's perspective, his day begins as he walks toward his homeroom class. When he enters the room, students quickly rush to their seats. He makes his way to his desk and feels a little disheartened that his students still haven't warmed up to him. He looks around at their faces and realizes they all seem eager for the class to end. Still, he can always count on Kashiwata, as she's the only one who treats him without fear or hesitation. Every day, she dutifully attends class and looks him straight in the eyes, showing no hint of fear. He doesn't notice that she's actually on her Lime app. His attention then shifts to Oda, Kashiwata's polar opposite. He notices Oda mumbling something under his breath, so he calls his attention. As Oda growls in frustration, Oniwurata observes him closely, noting how his disheveled appearance perfectly matches his delinquent behavior. When he catches him not paying attention again, he smacks him with a rolled-up notebook. He then notices Kashiwata shaking slightly and assumes she's laughing. The other students soon start laughing as well. Oniwurata feels that this might be the key to making his students enjoy his lectures. He just needs to fill his lessons with humor. He quietly thanks Kashiwata for the sudden realization. As the lecture continues, he tries to throw in a few puns. However, when he glances at the class, they all look bored. In fact, the atmosphere feels heavier than before. He turns to Kashiwata for reassurance, but even she looks unusually down. Oniwurata turns to Oda, hoping he can help break the ice, but Oda also looks like he's suffering. In a matter of seconds, Tabuchi faints and Oniwurata wonders if his sense of humor is hazardous. His eyes then land on Oda, who is once again on his phone. He realizes he can use this moment to make the class lively. Just as Oda stands up, Oniwurata is immediately by his side. He accuses Oda of browsing inappropriate sites, but inwardly thanks him for being his savior. He then notices that Oda's face is bright red, which makes him wonder if Oda has feelings for him. So after class, he calls Oka to speak with him. He thanks Oda for rescuing him, but apologizes, stating he cannot reciprocate his feelings, leaving Oda completely confused. One day, Tabuchi decides to challenge Oda to a duel because she's annoyed with his recent behavior. She reminds him that he lost Kashiwata's hair tie, and even though they found it, the trouble could have been avoided. Kashiwata, however, doesn't seem to mind, happily eating her lunch. What annoys Tabuchi most is that people have started comparing her to Oda. To prove that she's nothing like him, she challenges him to a reaction battle. The one who makes an obvious reaction loses. Tabuchi then adds that the loser must promise to stay away from Kashiwata. Kashiwata hears this and becomes sad. Oda easily agrees to the terms, and soon sparks of rivalry begin to ignite between the two. The competition begins, and both Tabuchi and Oda maintain neutral expressions throughout class. Oniwurata announces that he will be returning the exam results from last time, and Tabuchi is confident that Oda will freak out when he gets his results. Tabuchi receives her exam and scores a 95, which makes her happy, though she still manages to maintain her poker face. When Oda gets his exam results, Tabuchi keeps her eyes locked on him, but Oda doesn't react. She wonders if he actually did well this time and moves closer to get a glimpse of his score. To her horror, Oda scored a 0. She can't believe he isn't reacting and assumes his body must have shut down from the shock. Oda turns to face her, aware that she's probably confused. In his mind, he's already used to bad scores. By the end of class, Oda waits for his classmates to leave so he can scare Tabuchi. A pair of students are about to exit the room when the merch suddenly dangles in front of them. Before they can get a good look at the words, Tabuchi dashes forward so fast to grab it that they barely register what happened. They convince themselves they must have imagined seeing the strange fan merchandise. Meanwhile, Tabuchi and Oda stare each other down, neither admitting that they're both bringing their A game. The next morning, Oda brings in some hot takoyaki. He tells Tabuchi they should eat them at the same time to see who reacts first. Both immediately pop an entire ball into their mouths and fail to keep straight faces. Oda's friends help themselves to the takoyaki as well, eating carefully, and invite Kashiwata to join them. Kashiwata easily eats one without reacting, while Tabuchi and Oda accuse each other of reacting. Tabuchi glances at Kashiwata, trying to calm herself down, knowing her friend will be proud of her. However, Kashiwata tells Tabuchi that she finds her cuter when she reacts naturally. Tabuchi's facade cracks since she's never been called cute before. Then the boys also start calling her cute, and soon her face turns red from all the compliments. Overwhelmed, she runs out of the room in embarrassment. Oda cheers in victory, but Kashiwata quietly asks if not showing emotion is really a good thing. Oda insists it is because if people can always read what you're thinking, it puts you at a disadvantage. After a thoughtful pause, Kashiwata admits that she actually envies people like Ota because others know what he's feeling. In her case, people hardly take her seriously. She then turns away and runs out of the classroom, leaving Oda confused but blushing. At the school gymnasium, Oda's class is assigned to clean. He notices that Kashiwata isn't with their group, and Tadokoro informs him that she's cleaning the storage room. Seeing an opportunity, Oda rushes to the storage room, determined to spook Kashiwata. Entering the storage room, Oda doesn't see her right away, so he decides to look around. He pulls out a toy rat and wonders where he can place it so she'll notice it. Then he spots some movement in a gap and sees Kashiwata searching for something. When he asks what she's doing, she tells him she saw something scurried by and wanted to get a closer look. Oda assumes it might be a real rat and decides to help her find it. Meanwhile, the coach checks on the class of progress and deems the cleaning good enough for the day. He takes a quick look toward the storage room and decides it's fine to lock it. Tadokoro tries to tell him that Oda and Kashiwata are still inside, but the coach insists there's no one there and locks the door. Inside the storage room, Oda hears the distinct click of the door locking. Kashiwata wonders if they've been locked in, and Oda panics, rushing to check the door. Sure enough, it won't budge. Realizing no one will likely check on them since school ended early after exams, Oda groans in frustration. He glances at Kashiwata, irritated that she seems completely unbothered. Oda looks for another exit and decides that, if it comes down to it, he might have to bust a hole through the wall. As he's thinking, he notices Kashiwata trembling and assumes she's laughing. He mocks her for being so relaxed about everything, but she quietly points out that Oda is panicking. He tries to argue back, claiming he also finds the situation funny, but a loud stomach grumble betrays him. Embarrassed, he denies being hungry. Kashiwata starts trembling again, then pulls out a small candy and offers it to him. Oda refuses at first, saying she should eat it instead, but she surprises him by taking out a few more pieces. Eventually, he gives in, and the two share the candy as the evening drags on. Oda starts to worry that no one will come for them until morning, when suddenly he feels Kashiwata cling to him. He demands to know what she's doing, and she points toward the shelves, saying she saw a ghost. Oda quickly looks in that direction and spots a small lizard. Kashiwata quietly thanks him for coming to look for her, admitting that if no one had checked, she would have been trapped there alone. Oda realizes her shaking earlier wasn't laughter but fear. Trying to cover his concern, he snaps at her, and Kashiwata simply turns away, unbothered. An idea strikes him. Since he now knows she's afraid of ghosts, he decides to use a nearby sheet to scare her. He calls her name dramatically and tries to scare her using the sheet, but trips and falls right on top of her. The door suddenly swings open, revealing Oniwurata and two classmates. They freeze at the sight of Oda on top of Kashiwata. Oniwurata immediately starts scolding him while Oda frantically tries to explain himself. When Kashiwata was younger, her class once played dodgeball. She was hit immediately. A classmate asked if she was angry, but she calmly said she had fun. Still, her classmates couldn't believe her because her expression stayed completely blank. During break, they chatted among themselves, but they felt uneasy because Kashiwata wasn't reacting to their stories. Because of her expressionless face, her classmates slowly started to avoid her. Now things are different. Kashiwata is always approached by Oda, who constantly tries to scare her. He uses a jack-in-the-box in his latest attempt, but when it pops out, he's the one who jumps in fright. Oda notices a faint blush on her cheeks and immediately turns red himself. Tadokoro catches the scene too, teasing Oda for making her blush. Oda denies everything, while Tadokoro teases him for his own red face. None of them notice the tiny smile on Kashiwata's face. One morning, Oda asks Kashiwata to join him in watching a movie on Sunday. His friends are stunned, unable to believe that Oda was bold enough to invite her out on a date. He quickly clarifies that it is not a date and shows them a poster of an upcoming horror film. Since he knows Kashiwata is terrified of ghosts, he believes this will be the perfect opportunity to see her show emotion for once. He points at her, claiming that Sunday will finally be the day he gets her to react. After a moment of thought, Kashiwata agrees to go with him. Tadokoro becomes curious about whether her expression will finally change and briefly considers joining them, though Sada advises against it. When Tabuchi arrives in the classroom, everyone quickly clears from Kashiwata's area. Shortly after, Kashiwata receives a live message from Oda telling her to meet him at Ox Park at 10 in the morning on Sunday. When Sunday arrives, Oda finds Kashiwata sitting by the fountain. Seeing her in casual attire catches him off guard, and he feels his face redden before he can compose himself. Kashiwata stands, suggesting that they head to the theater. Embarrassed by his own reaction, Oda tells her that this is not a date as he turns to face a different direction. Kashiwata lightly grabs his sleeve, which only makes him more flustered as they continue their walk together. At the theater, Oda studies the horror poster with confidence, convinced that this time he will finally get a reaction out of her since the film is said to have several jump scares. Once inside the cinema, they take their seats with no one sitting nearby. Oda gets excited as he quietly reviews his plan to use jelly to surprise her. When the movie begins, Oda is the first to nearly scream. Though he tries to remain composed, each new jump scare makes it harder for him to hide his fear. Kashiwata, on the other hand, remains calm and observes him with quiet curiosity. As Oda tries to get her to look at the screen, a sudden romantic scene plays. His face turns red and he averts his eyes in embarrassment, worried that Kashiwata might misinterpret his reaction. Beside him, Kashiwata begins to shake slightly, not from fear, but from silent amusement. As the movie continues, Oda urges Kashiwata to keep watching, convinced that the next scare will finally make her react. He decides it is the perfect time to use his jelly prank, but when he reaches into his pocket, the jelly is gone. Kashiwata spots the small pack beside her. She calmly picks it up and hands it to him, just as a terrifying image flashes on screen. As the audience exits the theater in cheerful spirits, Oda looks utterly drained. Kashiwata, on the other hand, remarks that the movie was enjoyable and that Oda's reactions made it even more entertaining. Embarrassed by her comment, Oda hides his face, insisting to himself that he simply did not expect such an emotional ending. Kashiwata notices the tears forming in his eyes and quietly offers him tissues, but Oda refuses and storms ahead. She follows him into town, where her attention is caught by a nearby arcade and she points at it. Oda reluctantly joins her and they try their luck at the claw machine. After several failed attempts, Oda finally wins a small rabbit plush. Kashiwata takes it with quiet delight, though her expression remains unchanged. Their outing continues as Kashiwata points toward a cafe known for its parfaits. They step inside and she orders the shop's seasonal special. Watching her eat the towering dessert, Oda realizes that despite her calm demeanor, Kashiwata enjoys the same simple pleasures a normal girl would. On the train ride home, Kashiwata gradually dozes off, her head resting gently on Oda's shoulder. Though flustered, Oda stays still, only growing more embarrassed when nearby passengers comment on how cute they look together. The next morning, Oda's friends immediately ask how the horror movie went and whether Kashiwata was scared. Oda, still mortified from the day before, avoids answering. Sada then claims to have discovered a way to truly surprise Kashiwata. This interests Oda, and Sada tells him that all he needs to do is grab her hand. Though skeptical, Oda decides to try it. When he does, his own face turns scarlet and he quickly lets go, shouting in embarrassment. His friends watch his overreaction while Kashiwata quietly looks down at her hand, a faint but unmistakably shy expression forming on her face. As soon as the bell rings, the boys notice Kashiwata rushing out of the classroom. Oda assumes she must be plotting something odd and suggests they follow her, hoping to catch her doing something he can use as leverage. Though skeptical, his friends decide to tag along, certain that Kashiwata will somehow win whatever unspoken competition Oda has in mind. They trail her across campus until they find her crouched in a quiet corner outside the building. To their surprise, she's holding a small kitten in her hands. Sada immediately notices how attached the kitten seems to her and asks where it came from. Kashiwata explains that she found it abandoned a few days earlier and has been secretly caring for it on campus since her father dislikes cats and wouldn't allow one at home. The kitten begins to meow softly, prompting Kashiwata to bring out a small bottle of milk. Oda notices that it isn't ordinary milk, but formula meant for kittens. They all watch as she gently feeds the small creature, her expression calm and unchanged. Sada quietly remarks that even if her face doesn't show it, she must be happy to see the kitten each day. Oda mutters that he wouldn't be able to tell, though his gaze lingers on Kashiwata and the way she carefully holds the animal. She seems to notice and unexpectedly offers him the kitten, saying he can try petting it. Oda refuses at first, but when she insists, he gives in and reaches out, only for the kitten to hiss and swipe its tiny paw at him. Startled, Oda pulls his hand back as his friends tease that the kitten clearly doesn't like him. Sada then warns Kashiwata that keeping a cat on school grounds isn't safe, especially at night. They suggest finding a proper home. Both Sada and Tadokoro admit they can't adopt the animal, so Kashiwata turns to Oda, asking if he could take it in. Tadokoro tenses, expecting Oda to use the situation to his advantage, but Oda simply declines. Instead, he suggests they all work together to look for someone who can care for it properly. Tadokoro can't help but smile, thinking Oda is a strange person since he would occasionally act out of character. Suddenly, they hear Tabuchi's voice and she appears from the bushes, telling the group to leave everything to her. Oda insults her as she eagerly approaches Kashiwata and the cat. Oda begins typing away on his phone, muttering that he's already working on finding an owner. He proudly shows everyone that he made a social media post about it, confident that it will reach his followers. Tadokoro points out that Oda only has 3 followers, so it won't help much. Sada suggests they all help by asking around for people who might adopt the cat. Tabuchi volunteers to ask people in the school, while Oda says he'll stay where he is so he can focus on attracting more followers to get his post noticed. He then excitedly announces that his post has already been reposted, but quickly becomes disheartened when he learns that it was only Tadokoro who reposted it. The group splits up to ask around, but all of them have a hard time finding someone willing to adopt the cat. Most either aren't interested or already have a pet that might harm the small kitten. They eventually meet back where they started and feel disheartened to learn that no one wants to take the kitten. Just then, Oda's phone pings and he tells the group that someone has shown interest in adopting the cat. The person lives in the next town but will be passing by the school tomorrow to pick it up. As the others compliment Oda for finding an owner, Kashiwata quietly stares at the kitten inside the box. The next day, they meet the woman who wants the cat. She promises to take good care of it. When Kashiwata hands the box over, she has a hard time letting go and begins to shake. After a few seconds, she finally releases the box and the woman walks away with the kitten. The others also begin to head back, but Kashiwata and Oda stay behind, watching the woman disappear into the distance. Oda notices Kashiwata clutching the formula she had bought for the kitten. He pats her head, reassuring her that she'll meet the cat again someday. Kashiwata's eyes begin to tear up, but she agrees with Oda's words. The next day, Kashiwata leaves the classroom as soon as the bell rings. Oda finds it suspicious and decides to follow her, thinking he can find out her weakness. He discovers that Kashiwata had rushed all the way to the woman's home just to visit the cat. Tabuchi greets Kashiwata with a happy birthday and reveals that she bought her a gift. She hands it to Kashiwata, who is genuinely surprised, even if her expression doesn't show it. Tabuchi proudly reveals that she bought the gift in secret, hoping to surprise Kashiwata. As Kashiwata unwraps the present, Oda approaches and wonders aloud if it really is her birthday. He asks how Tabuchi knew, and Tabuchi replies that it's only natural since they are friends. Inside the wrapping, Kashiwata finds an assortment of cat-themed items, which she lays out on her desk. She remarks that they're all cute, and Oda notices a large pile of message cards, teasing Tabuchi about them. He comments that Kashiwata probably thinks she's a creep, but Tabuchi insists that her actions aren't creepy at all and turns to see Kashiwata's response to her gift. Kashiwata gently picks up a small cat charm, fiddling with it before thanking Tabuchi, adding Chan to her name. Tabuchi notices the suffix and is delighted, realizing that it means Kashiwata sees her as a close friend. Soon, Oda's friends join in to greet Kashiwata a happy birthday. Oda's friends encourage him to greet Kashiwata, but he refuses, claiming there's no point in greeting her. Tadokoro insists that she probably wants to hear it from him the most. Kashiwata's eyes turn toward Oda, silently waiting. Under pressure, he tries to speak but stumbles over his words, then blurts out that she should have a rotten birthday and even insults her. Everyone freezes. His friends and Tabuchi immediately scold him, calling what he said out of line, especially on her birthday. Tabuchi warns him to apologize and greet her before class ends, but Oda brushes it off and storms out. The others look disappointed, except for Kashiwata, who only watches quietly as he leaves. By sunset, while walking home, Oda's friends are disappointed in him since he never wished Kashiwata a happy birthday, especially after insulting her. Oda mentions that Kashiwata was oddly following him around the entire day, and Tadokoro explains that it's because she was expecting him to greet her. Oda refuses to acknowledge his mistake and stubbornly heads home. By the time he reaches home, Oda feels incredibly guilty, so he sends her several funny lime stamps. Kashiwata notices her phone chime and sees the messages. She feels her heart flutter as she types out a reply. Oda sees her cheerful response and becomes excited. His parents notice how happy he looks and assume he's messaging a girl. Kashiwata eagerly waits for another reply, but Oda is still thinking of what to say. She leaves her phone when her mother calls her for dinner and cake. Her phone chimes with several new messages from Oda, which include a greeting and some photos of cats, but she doesn't see them. Oda anxiously waits for a reply as his parents observe him from the table, amused that their son is very obvious. One morning, Sada introduces himself to the viewers, clarifying that although his name sounds like Sada, it is actually Sada. He adds that people often comment on how his eyes appear lifeless. Regardless of the situation, he finds it difficult to relate to his friends or other people, and this is evident in his general lack of enthusiasm. That same day, he receives a confession from a girl he does not know. He cannot even recall ever speaking to her, and he admits that he does not understand romance very well. After leaving the girl, Sada heads to the classroom, where he notices Oda bothering Kashiwata once again. He quietly admits that he genuinely enjoys watching the two of them interact. When the teacher announces that he will be distributing test scores, Oda unsurprisingly receives a 0. Sada observes that Oda's thoughts are always transparent due to his expressive face. In contrast, Kashiwata remains expressionless regardless of her results. When Oda asks about her score, she admits that she received a 40. Oda assumes she is looking down on him, though in truth, she is quietly disappointed with her performance. Later, Oda attempts to startle her with a toy snake, but to his surprise, Kashiwata grabs it by the tail and turns the tables by frightening him instead. From his seat, Sada observes with mild astonishment that she actually resisted. He reflects that watching them and trying to predict their next actions is entertaining. If he were to describe their relationship, he would find it difficult to assign it a label, but he senses that the two share a mutual attraction. The following day, Sada notices Kashiwata staring out the hallway window and thinks she looks somewhat dejected. Suddenly, Oda calls out to her and she immediately runs away upon noticing him. The same occurs repeatedly throughout the day as Kashiwata continues to avoid Oda. Oda grows frustrated with being ignored and Tadokoro teases him. Sada, however, senses that something must have happened to cause such a change. He decides to approach Kashiwata privately and asks if something is wrong. Kashiwata hesitantly confesses that she tried to cut her own bangs and that the result turned out odd. Sada suppresses a chuckle and tells her that he's sure Oda wouldn't even notice, since her bangs don't look much different from usual. He observes how she keeps touching her bangs and concludes that caring so much about small details usually means wanting to look good for someone you like. Sada reassures her again that her bangs look fine, even offering a rare kind smile to help her relax. Just then, Oda accidentally makes a sound alerting them to his presence. When he tries to sneak away, Sada stops him and tells him not to get the wrong idea. He turns to Kashiwata and asks if it's okay to tell Oda the real reason she's been avoiding him. After hearing the explanation, Oda calls Kashiwata stupid for worrying so much about her bangs. He then offers to fix them for her, shocking everyone. Pulling out his scissors, he confidently insists it'll be easy. To everyone's surprise, Kashiwata agrees and lets him start trimming. However, as Oda snips away, he quickly realizes he's made a mistake and makes it worse trying to even things out. By the time he's finished, her bangs are noticeably shorter than before. Oda forces a smile and insists they look good, but Kashiwata bluntly tells him that his face says otherwise. Embarrassed, Oda hides his expression and starts suggesting different hairstyles to make her bangs look better, and Tadokoro bursts out laughing at how it all turned out. Kashiwata remains expressionless, but it's clear she's furious about her new bangs. Watching the scene, Sada quietly concludes that she probably doesn't like Ota. The next day, Oniwara announces that spring break will begin tomorrow. He reminds the class to finish their homework, even calling out Ota by name, knowing full well he won't do it. After class, Ota fumes about being singled out while his friends coax him to walk home with them. Sada teases him, asking if he'll be lonely without seeing Kashiwata. Ota stubbornly denies it, claiming it's actually a relief, but his eyes still follow her as she leaves. Tadokoro starts laughing hysterically, saying that Ota's face completely gave away his true feelings. Oda tells him to shut up, but suddenly jumps when Kashiwata appears behind him. He scolds her for startling him, insisting that he just saw her outside. Kashiwata reminds him about the upcoming Christmas party, and Tadokoro recalls that their class is holding one tomorrow. Sada notes that attendance is voluntary, while Ota immediately declares that he has no intention of joining since it's just going to be a gift exchange and eating too many sweets. He adds that he doesn't see the point of celebrating Christmas because he finds it stupid. Kashiwata stares at him in silence for so long that he eventually shifts his attention back to her. She quietly asks if he could attend the party. After a long pause, Oda finally mutters a reluctant "okay," and Tadokoro immediately bursts out laughing at how soft his response was. Kashiwata, meanwhile, is inwardly happy that she managed to convince him. Later that day, back at his apartment, Oda sulks about needing to bring a gift for the exchange until he realizes this might be the perfect opportunity to mess with Kashiwata by giving her something weird. Just then, a strong, foul odor fills the air. His sister walks in holding a canned fish, explaining that she bought it because it seemed interesting. Oda complains about her strange shopping habits, saying that the fact it stinks even when unopened is proof enough that trying it is a terrible idea. She ignores him and walks away, but Oda suddenly realizes what to get Kashiwata. The next day, Tadokoro spots Oda arriving at the venue. Tadokoro admits that he decided to come since the party actually seemed fun. He also reveals that he didn't buy anything new for the exchange and just brought something from home that he didn't need anymore. They soon notice Kashiwata looking around the venue. When she spots them, she approaches, clutching her present close to her chest. Oda immediately asks what she brought, but she refuses to tell him. He tries to guess but can't figure it out, mostly because he's too focused on her face instead of the gift. Oda then proudly says that he brought a really festive present, and Tadokoro turns pale when he sees the suspiciously wrapped package, already certain it'll be a nightmare for whoever receives it. The much-awaited gift exchange is about to begin, and Aobuchi steps forward to announce it. She points out that the huge box on the side is from Onowurata and meant for the entire class, adding that they were instructed to open it last. What no one knows is that Onowurata is actually inside that box, dressed in a Santa costume. He believes that popping out as a present will make everyone laugh and help him shed his reputation as the strict, intimidating teacher. As the party continues, Tadokoro leans toward Oda and says he knows Oda's planning to prank Kashiwata, but asks how he's going to make sure his gift ends up in her hands. Oda looks confused, until Yabuchi announces that all presents will be collected and shuffled randomly. Realizing there's no guarantee Kashiwata will receive his gift, Oda panics. He complains that no one told him about this rule, and Tadokoro explains that it's the normal way gift exchanges work. Just then, Tadokoro notices Kashiwata shivering and asks if she's cold, but the truth is she's simply startled by how the gift exchange is done. Meanwhile, Oda starts frantically brainstorming ways to read the results until he notices something dripping from his bag. A strong, fishy smell quickly spreads throughout the room. Everyone starts gagging and looking around in confusion, wondering where the stench is coming from. The class starts complaining at him in disbelief as the smell grows unbearable. Yabuchi finally orders everyone to step outside for fresh air, and the students rush out, blaming Oda for ruining the party. Kashiwata also leaves but glances back at the venue, a worried look flickering across her face. Inside, Oda scrambles to look for the can of fish, finally finding the leaking can and wrapping it tightly in layers of tape and a plastic bag. While he's doing this, Kashiwata approaches him. Startled, Oda hides the gift behind his back, but Kashiwata simply holds out a neatly wrapped present toward him. She tells him it's her Christmas present for him. Oda freezes, completely taken aback that she prepared something just for him. When he unwraps it, he finds a green scarf inside. Kashiwata explains softly that she wanted that specific gift to go to him. Feeling awkward and pressured to give something in return, Oda hurriedly pulls out his old gloves and hands them to her. Kashiwata assumes they're a gift he chose and slips them on, commenting that the looseness gives them a certain charm. Late that night, Onowurata finally lifts the lid of the box, only to find the venue completely empty. He never realized everyone had already evacuated. During New Year's, Oda is playing games while his sister sorts through the family's New Year's cards. One catches her eye since it's addressed to Oda. She points out the cute drawings and guesses that the sender must be a girl. When she reads the name Kashiwata, Oda instantly turns red. He rushes over to snatch the letter, but his sister teases him by holding it out of reach. She laughs, asking if Kashiwata is the girl he likes, and starts reading the card. She notes that it even sounds like a confession, but when Oda finally manages to grab it, he realizes it's just a simple New Year's greeting. He scolds his sister for making fun of him. He remembers that Kashiwata once asked for his address, and he figures she simply wanted to send him a greeting. Still, he feels a little guilty for not sending one back. Looking over his shoulder, his sister asks if Kashiwata is the same girl he's been chatting with online. Oda snaps back, demanding how she knew, but then realizes he just admitted it himself. His sister laughs, claiming she's just being a good older sister. She invites him to join her for the shrine visit, but he refuses. As she threatens to tell their father about the letter, Oda immediately changes his mind and agrees to come along. At the shrine, after making their prayers, his sister smiles, happy that he finally decided to join her. As they walk away, Sada spots them and greets Oda. After introductions, Sada casually mentions the canned fish incident, though Oda's sister only looks at them, confused. Then they notice Kashiwata nearby. Oda can't believe the coincidence. His sister catches him staring and asks what's so interesting about her. Oda replies that it's just strange how Kashiwata always looks so emotionless. His sister, however, finds her doll-like expression and features adorable. Oda disagrees, prompting his sister to smirk knowingly at him. He tries to hurry them home, but then spots Kashiwata drawing a fortune. He wonders if she's happy, while Sada teases that Oda always watches Kashiwata closely. Flustered, Oda covers his eyes so no one can tell where he's looking. Trying to save face, Oda insists he doesn't even know Kashiwata, but at that exact moment she waves at him. He tries to ignore her, but she runs over and touches the scarf she gave him, clearly happy that he's using it. Panicking, Oda pretends not to know her and claims it was a gift from a stranger. Sada sighs, saying Oda's lies are getting ridiculous. Amused, Oda's sister wraps her arms around him, pretending to be his girlfriend. Kashiwata watches with her usual blank expression, but then Oda's sister grabs her, saying she wants to experiment to see what kind of expressions she can make. Oda is horrified, while Sada notes how quickly his sister changes targets. Oda's sister drags Kashiwata toward their apartment, but Kashiwata gets a call from her parents and has to leave. Before parting, Oda's sister cheerfully tells Oda to invite Kashiwata over next time so she can continue her experiments. Tadokoro laments his terrible luck. Because of the new seat assignments, he's now sitting between Oda and Kashiwata, and he can't believe how unlucky he is. He wonders why Oda keeps glaring at Kashiwata all the time. Since Tadokoro is seated in front of Oda, he can practically feel the intensity of his glare on his back and starts to worry that Oda might actually be glaring at him instead, annoyed that Tadokoro's in the way. Meanwhile, he notices Kashiwata occasionally looking behind her and silently pleads for her to face forward. Her expression gives him no clues about what she's thinking. Then he feels another sharp glare from the side, this time from Tabuchi, who's also glaring at Oda. Caught in the middle of all this silent tension, Tadokoro feels like he's stuck in a three-way standoff straight out of a cowboy movie. Worst part is, since he's there, he might get hit by the crossfire. His eyes wander to the far corner of the room, where Sada is quietly smiling, completely unbothered. Tadokoro envies him. It looks like Sada's in his own peaceful little world. When Sada mounts a playful, "Hang in there," Tadokoro feels utterly betrayed for having the worst seat in class. Exhausted from the intense atmosphere, Tadokoro finally asks Oda if he wants to trade seats, stating that it'll be easier for Oda to be closer to Kashiwata, but Oda misinterprets the offer, assuming Tadokoro is only suggesting it because he believes Oda likes Kashiwata. He realizes he misworded his request. Since that plan fails, Tadokoro tries asking Kashiwata to swap instead, but she politely refuses. During break, Tadokoro's stomach sinks when he overhears Oda telling Kashiwata to have another contest with him. This time, Oda proposes they pass notes next period with doodles, and whoever makes the other laugh first wins. To Tadokoro's horror, Oda adds that he'll be the one delivering their drawings. Tadokoro isn't even surprised anymore since he already expected to be included, being conveniently in the middle of them. He sighs and agrees, but only if they promise he won't get into trouble. Oda reassures him that it'll be fine, but also whispers that Tabuchi mustn't find out. Tadokoro can't believe that Oda's basically asking him to perform a miracle. As Japanese class begins, Oda passes his first drawing to Tadokoro. Curious, Tadokoro takes a peek and instantly regrets it. The strange creature barely resembles a giraffe. Its legs are too short since Oda failed to consider how much drawing space he has, its body is misshapen, and its face looks utterly pitiful. Tadokoro concludes that Oda doesn't have a single artistic bone in his body. He's still staring in disbelief when Tabuchi glances his way. He then passes the drawing over to Kashiwata and silently prays that her response will be something normal. No one notices Kashiwata trembling from trying to hold in her laughter. She picks up her pen and draws, quickly sending the drawing to Tadokoro. He panics when he sees that Kashiwata had drawn a slightly smaller giraffe beside Oda's, perfectly matching his style. Oniwurata immediately pauses his lecture to question him, but lets him off with a warning. Still rattled, Tadokoro passes the paper to Oda. Oda takes one look and starts stifling his laughter. Tadokoro can't help joining in, which immediately gets them both called out by Oniwurata. He asks if they find the class funny. Tadokoro panics and blurts out a denial while Oda calmly starts doodling again. When Oda sends the paper back, Tadokoro tells him that continuing is a bad idea. But when he steals a peek at the drawing, he nearly bursts out laughing since it's now labeled Tabuchi, and the resemblance is obvious. Unfortunately, Tabuchi notices and glares at him, feeling insulted. He tries to clear his name, but Tabuchi pinches his arm in annoyance. Oniwurata, seeing the commotion, reprimands Tadokoro once again for disturbing the class. Just then, Kashiwata passes him another paper. Tadokoro glances at it and freezes. It's a doodle poking fun at Oniwurata himself, and as fate would have it, Oniwurata is standing right beside him when he sees it. Kashiwata sits with an innocent face while Tadokoro and Oda are promptly ordered to bring the drawing to the faculty room. Later, as they leave the staff room, Aniwarada remains at his desk, staring long and hard at the caricature of himself. He wonders if maybe his students would be more comfortable around him if he acted a little more like the drawing. One snowy afternoon, Oda walks home with his usual group. Tadakoro complains about how cold it is, while Oda shares that he spent most of his winter break either playing games or thinking of ways to destroy Kashiwada. Sada notes that spending his time on those things perfectly explains why Aniwarada was so upset with Oda's winter break homework. As they continue walking, Sada spots Kashiwada off to the side, building what appears to be a snowman. While Oda tries to make sense of what she's doing, Sada and Tadakoro already expect him to destroy the snowman to make her upset. However, Oda dismisses the idea, saying that doing something so simple would be lame. He breaks off an icicle and tells them he plans to put it on her neck to spook her instead. Tadakoro tells him that the plan is also lame, but Oda insists it's perfect if he can pull it off sneakily. Before he can act, he suddenly feels something cold hit his head. Kashiwada had already spotted them and thrown a snowball as a preemptive strike. When Oda asks what she's doing, Kashiwada explains that he looks suspicious holding the icicle, so she assumed he was going to stab her. He shouts that he wouldn't go that far, but then feels odd when he feels the snow seep under his clothes. Oda complains in discomfort since the ice is wet and cold. Kashiwada suddenly shakes, then runs off, prompting Oda to chase after her and throw a snowball of his own. She dodges easily, explaining that she can predict his throws based on his facial expressions. His friends are disappointed since Oda had been briding earlier, but it's clear Kashiwada still has the upper hand. Then, Oda notices a large mound of snow behind her and grins as he comes up with an idea. He challenges her to a snowball fight, declaring that the loser will be the one who gets covered in snow. He believes he can make her fall into the mound by throwing snowballs she's meant to dodge. He smiles confidently, thinking his plan is foolproof. But he pauses when he sees that Kashiwada is holding a huge chunk of actual ice instead of snow. For a moment, he worries she's figured out his plan and is preparing to fight back by threatening to throw something that could actually hurt him. He studies her face, but her expression gives nothing away. He notices the ice looks heavy and reasons with himself that even if she throws it, it probably won't reach him. Kashiwada throws the ice and it lands near Oda. He mocks her for the weak throw, only for a pile of snow from the trees to suddenly fall on him, completely covering him. Kashiwada plainly declares that she won, which infuriates Oda. He suddenly announces that he won't quit until she falls into the pile of snow behind her, giving away his plan when it was supposed to be a secret. However, instead of dodging backward like he expected, Kashiwada only ducks and moves to the side, never once stepping closer to the snow pile. Oda's friends watch in amusement as he keeps throwing snowballs at her before deciding to join in themselves, both siding with Kashiwada since it is clear that she is the winning team member. Oda is shocked that his friends start launching snowballs at him, and he finds it unfair. It becomes a 3 versus 1 battle. Oda can barely land a hit, while Kashiwada strikes him effortlessly. He's on the verge of exploding when a snowball from her hits him square in the face, sending his friends into laughter. He recovers and chases them around the area. They end up playing all afternoon. His friends manage to land hits of their own against Oda. As payback, Oda even makes a huge snowball, planning to bury Sada with it, but drops it on himself when Kashiwada hits him again. As his attacks focus on his friends, his eyes drift toward Kashiwada, preparing another snowball. A gentle smile forms on his face just before one of his friends pelts him again. As the boys laugh and play, Kashiwada allows a small smile to grace her own face, having fun in an afternoon she thought would be spent alone. One morning before class, students filter into the school. Kashiwada sits quietly in her classroom seat, lost in thought as she reminisces about the past. Her mind drifts back to kindergarten. Back then, Oda was a messy kid who loved to scare his classmates with things he found on the ground like frogs. A teacher quickly spotted him bullying the others and scolded him while cleaning him up. She'd also asked if he was responsible for the grasshopper she found in her bag the day before. Oda refused to confess and immediately ran off to play when another kid called him over to join everyone outside for a game of tag. As he played, he noticed Kashiwada sitting alone by herself in the playroom. Still, he turned his attention back to his friends and continued playing. The children enjoyed themselves in the yard until their teacher called for their attention. She reminded them that they had forgotten to invite Kashiwada again. One of the girls complained that Kashiwada never smiled whenever they played together. They had assumed she didn't want to play with them and had never bothered to ask. Out of curiosity towards Kashiwada, Oda decided to head back to the classroom and launch his frog at her. It landed on her head, but Kashiwada remained unfazed. He tried to get her to admit that the frog was huge, but she only stared at him. Oda called her weird, saying that any other girl would have cried or screamed. Kashiwada bowed her head quickly. He screamed, startled to be pranked by her. Kashiwada calmly explained that since he had surprised her first, what she did was simply payback. Oda tried to deny being surprised, but Kashiwata could tell from his embarrassed expression that he really was. He then asked if she had been surprised because it didn't look like it. Kashiwata didn't answer, her gaze drifting toward their classmates playing outside. Oda realized then that she had always wanted to join them. He told her to just say what she wanted instead of keeping quiet. She'd only stared blankly, so Oda grabbed her hand and led her out to the playground. His friends were surprised to see him bring Kashiwata along, but Oda met her to speak. She quietly told them she wanted to play too. Instead of rejecting her, they welcomed her warmly. Kashiwata joined in their game of tag, her expression neutral but her energy lively. During lunch, she noticed Oda searching for something. It turned out he had lost his frog, so she decided to speak to him another time. That night, as Kashiwata lay in bed, she told herself she would thank Oda in the morning. But the next day, Oda was gone. Their teacher told the class that he had moved away and wouldn't be returning. Kashiwata felt heartbroken. Oda had been her first friend, and she had come to really like his straightforward attitude. Returning from her memories, Kashiwata glances toward Oda, finally noticing that he's already in school. She stares, wondering if he remembers her from back then. Oda catches her looking and becomes flustered, especially as Tadokoro starts teasing him about it. Quietly, Kashiwata confesses her feelings again, causing Oda's face to turn bright red before she hurriedly runs away. One day, Oda asks if Kashiwata can wink. She gives it a try, but clearly struggles to do it. Oda laughs, pleased that she can't. But when he tries to show off, he only closes both eyes, completely unaware that he can't wink either. The morning begins with students confessing their love. It's Valentine's Day, and the school quickly fills with excitement. Even Oda notices how lively everyone seems. Tadokoro comments that it's Valentine's Day, which only makes Oda irritated that everyone is so enthusiastic about it. Tadokoro admits that every year he hopes to receive at least one piece of chocolate from a girl, but he always ends up with only the one from his mother. Oda bluntly calls it sad, causing Tadokoro to complain that Oda has never received chocolates either. Both of them notice Sada arriving at his desk with his arms full of chocolates. They rush over, and Tadokoro is instantly amazed that one of his best friends is such a heartthrob. When Sada calmly asks how many they received, they're too embarrassed to admit they have 0. Sada picks up on it and offers them 1 chocolate. Tadokoro takes it. He then asks Sada why he doesn't look happy despite receiving so many. Sada simply says there isn't anyone he actually likes. Tadokoro realizes that it must feel different if you're hoping to get chocolate from someone special. He glances expectantly at Oda, aware of Oda's crush on Kashiwata. Oda avoids meeting his gaze, not wanting to give himself away. Kashiwata suddenly appears between them and greets them good morning. She then looks directly at Oda, making him uneasy. She asks Oda if he knows what day it is. Oda tries to pretend he has no idea that it's Valentine's Day, but ends up blurting that he doesn't want anything today. Kashiwata stares at him and asks what exactly he doesn't want. Realizing he slipped, he tells her to just forget it. At his surprise, she lets it go and walks to her desk. Oda is confused, but Sada says it was obviously about chocolates. Oda disagrees, insisting that Kashiwata is so unpredictable and airheaded that chocolates probably didn't even occur to her. Tadokoro scolds him for being too harsh. Kashiwata is still a girl, and she's likely just as excited as the other girls. He's sure she'll approach Oda later. Oda denies expecting anything. Later during break, Oda walks down the hall, trying not to look eager for Kashiwata to approach him. When she does, he struggles to hide the blush rising on his cheeks as she rummages through a bag to hand him something. He feels a wave of disappointment when it turns out to be just the eraser he dropped earlier. Kashiwata then tells him she has another thing for him. Oda feigns indifference again, even though he's excited at the thought of chocolates. His excitement drops when Kashiwata instead pulls out the class log for him to take, since he's on duty tomorrow. Oda finally snaps and tells her to stop pulling random items out of her bag because it makes him think each one is something important. Kashiwata ignores his complaints and says there's still one more thing she has to give him. She rummages through the bag, then stops and simply stares inside. Lowering the bag, she tells him she no longer has anything left to give. She walks off, leaving Oda confused and disappointed. Meanwhile, Kashiwata returns to the classroom and calmly approaches Oda's desk. She carefully takes out a brightly colored paper bag and hangs it on the desk bag hook. When Oda reaches his desk, he notices the present. Tadokoro gets excited, betting it's chocolates, but Oda tells him to shut up while pretending not to care. With the bag in hand, he quickly leaves the room. He heads to a quiet part of the school and opens the bag. Inside are 2 wrapped chocolate bars. Realizing he was given Valentine's chocolates, his face immediately goes red. He wonders if they're from Kashiwata, unaware that she's watching him from nearby. One bright morning, Oniwara hands out the test scores from the previous day's exam. Kashiwata gives her usual blank expression, while Oda's eyes widen in shock at his own score. Tamuchi, meanwhile, lights up with a smile since she earned perfect marks. Oniwara returns to the front and encourages everyone to continue studying for future exams. Tamuchi shyly asks if Kashiwata would like to study with her in the library, hoping to help her improve her grades. After a quiet pause, Kashiwata agrees and Tabuchi quietly celebrates. For the first time, she feels her efforts as president of the Kashiwata fan club are paying off. Before their current friendship, she had spent the past 2 years simply observing and admiring Kashiwata from a safe distance. Her good mood continues throughout the day. As she and Kashiwata walk to the library, Tabuchi convinces herself that Oda and his friends won't bother them since they're the type who never want to study. But when she opens the library door, the first people she sees are Oda's group staring back at her with various expressions. Her good mood immediately slips away. She demands to know why they're in the library, and Oda angrily explains that he can't keep failing every exam. Tabuchi returns to Kashiwata, trying to think of a way for the two of them to study without distractions. She suggests finding another table, but Kashiwata points out that there aren't any free seats left. Tabuchi checks the room. Sure enough, every other table is occupied. With no other choice, they return to Oda's group and quietly sit at the same table. The placement makes her secretly happy, but Tabuchi fumes at how close they are. Suspicious, Tabuchi silently vows to keep an eye on Ota in case he tries anything that might bother Kashiwata. The study session begins, and Tabuchi notices how unusually quiet the table is. The boys have serious expressions, giving the impression they're actually studying. But when she glances at their materials, she realizes they've been playing cards the entire time. She also notices Kashiwata has a hand of cards of her own. Kashiwata defends herself, explaining that the boys invited her. Tabuchi feels a little left out since she was the only one not invited to play. She denies it when asked and tries to refocus on her studies. Oda ignores her and announces that the next game will be sevens. He shuffles the deck and deals the cards. Despite trying to focus, Tabuchi keeps getting distracted by their chatter. At one point, Oda gets frustrated when the last person to play a card ends up blocking him. Tadokoro notices that Tabuchi is trying to hide how much she wants to join the game. She keeps whispering suggestions for which cards Tadokoro should play, which makes him smile since her advice is helping him win. Oda eventually catches on and tells Tabuchi to just admit she wants to play and join them. Tabuchi refuses, insisting she only wants to make sure they don't do anything that might trouble Kashiwata. She also reminds them that they were supposed to be studying. Oda calls her a killjoy, saying she's always mad. The comment hits her harder than he expects. Hurt, Tabuchi tells them she doesn't mean to always be angry, then leaves the table to cool off. Sada quietly notes that Oda went too far. Tabuchi goes to the restroom and scolds herself for constantly being upset. She knows it's not cute for a girl to be angry all the time, and she wishes she could be more honest with her feelings like Kashiwata. She doesn't realize Kashiwata has followed her out of worry. As Tabuchi's emotions rise again, she's startled when Kashiwata calls her name. Kashiwata tells her that she has always found Tabuchi cute just as she is and that she doesn't need to change. Tabuchi is shocked at how easily Kashiwata seems to read her, and she also feels guilty for venting her frustrations to her. She continues complaining about other flaws in her personality, and Kashiwata calmly points out that Oda is the same way. The comparison doesn't comfort Tabuchi, but Kashiwata gently encourages her to return to the library. Tabuchi hesitates, but as they approach the library door, they overhear the boys talking about her. Tadokoro admits that he didn't like Tabuchi at first, but after getting to know her, he finds her interesting and thinks she has a charm similar to Oda's. Sada agrees with him. She finally walks in, and the boys look up at her. She nervously offers to help them if there's anything in their studies they don't understand. The boys immediately realize this is her way of saying she feels better. Sada tries to hold back his chuckles, almost certain Tabuchi overheard them earlier. Tabuchi notices and instantly scolds him for laughing. Oda says she's finally participating with them, but Tabuchi insists that they all need to focus on studying. Despite this, the study session ends up being ineffective. All of them fail their exams except for Sada. When the bell rings, Oda decides to tease Tabuchi for failing alongside them. Tabuchi argues back that she only failed because she studied the wrong materials and begins tearing up. Tadokoro laughs and is surprised that even Sada failed, but Sada corrects him and calmly states that he passed and only 4 of them failed. During White Day, the school is filled with the same excitement as Valentine's Day. Kashiwata notices this as she walks to her classroom, but before she can enter, Oda stops her. He loudly declares that he has nothing for her this White Day. Instead of looking offended or disappointed, Kashiwata simply stares at him with her usual blank expression, which unnerves him. Thinking he needs to switch tactics, Oda rummages through a plastic bag and hands her a small container. When she looks inside, she sees 3 large larvae. Even without reacting, Kashiwata continues to stare, prompting Oda to hand her a giant isopod next. Her body begins to tremble from fear, but Oda thinks she's shaking with silent laughter and becomes impressed that even these bugs don't make her flinch. Realizing he needs a stronger surprise, he thinks back to the day he visited his sister's room. His sister owns many bizarre items, so he went to her hoping to borrow something to prank Kashiwata. His sister, however, misunderstood and assumed he wanted to give Kashiwata a nice White Day surprise. She insisted she already knew the chocolates from Valentine's Day made him happy. Oda denied this and regretted coming to her in the first place, but still asked for something gross. His sister suddenly got an idea and instructed him not to open her item until he gave it to Kashiwata. Oda assumed it contained something stinky, but the way she shook with excitement made him feel confident it would be a huge surprise. Now back at school, Oda hands Kashiwata the green box, not knowing what's inside. He confidently tells her it will surprise her more than the bugs. Kashiwata opens it, falls silent, and stares. Curious, Oda peeks inside and sees a handwritten love confession addressed to Kashiwata. Horrified, he snatches it back, insisting it's not what it looks like. Kashiwata admits it really is surprising. Thinking she's mocking him, he becomes even more flustered. In his panic to hide the note, it accidentally hits Onewurata in the face. Onewurata reads it and assumes the confession is directed at him, and politely turns Oda down on the spot. Oda becomes mortified as he tries to explain to Kashiwata that the note was from his sister, meant to tease him. Kashiwata, who had been trembling with giddy excitement earlier, suddenly goes still with disappointment. She then asks if he has anything else and notices something in his pocket. He tries to back away, denying he has another present, but accidentally admits he bought candy for her. Under Kashiwata's stare, he finally hands her the cider mochi and quickly walks off. Sada and Tadakoro later see Kashiwata in the hall carrying the items, which they assume are White Day gifts from Ota. They laugh that he gave her cheap candy, though Sada notes it actually tastes good despite the price. Kashiwata allows a small smile to appear on her face. Later at home, Kashiwata's brother comes in to feed their hamster and is horrified to see her eating the larvae. Kashiwata calmly explains that the bugs are actually chocolates shaped like insects. One morning, Oda invites Kashiwata over to his house. He explains that there's something there he's sure she will like. His friends are certain he wants her to play a horror game. Kashiwata agrees, and to make her feel better, Sada explains that Oda invited her because he will miss her over spring break. After changing out of her uniform, Kashiwata takes a deep breath before entering Oda's apartment complex. Oda makes sure the room is in complete darkness before she arrives. Kashiwata arrives at his door and hesitates a little before ringing the doorbell. Inside, Oda swears because she is earlier than expected. He decides to answer the door and is confused when Kashiwata just stares at him. He tells her to come inside and assures her that none of his family is home. When she enters, she notices that the apartment is dark and Oda moves to turn on the lights. But as he fiddles with the switches, he announces that they won't turn on and that there might be paranormal activity at work. He wonders if Kashiwata is buying his acting and glances at her, noticing that her expression is as stoic as ever. He reassures himself that he still has many opportunities to scare her. He opens the door to his room, and when she enters, he pulls a string that makes a bunch of his books and toy eyeballs fall from a shelf. Kashiwata stares at the rolling eyeball. Though she is genuinely surprised, her face looks as if she's bored. Deciding he still has more tricks, he begins picking up his things, unaware that Kashiwata has found his notes on how to defeat her. She reads it aloud, and Oda swipes it away from her, scolding her for going through his personal items. Her eyes then drift to his grade school graduation album, and she asks if she can look at it. He gives her permission, and she instantly finds his grade school photo. She browses the clubs and activities pages and notices that Oda is blurry in all of the shots. He explains that he could never sit or stand still. However, Kashiwata finally finds a clear photo of him and recognizes his face as the same one he makes when he gets yelled at. Oda gets embarrassed and yanks the book away from her, but Kashiwata finds his preschool album and begins looking through it. She even sees his face when he had just peed on himself. She notices a page called Our Treasures, where Oda had written that his toy car was his treasure. He quickly grabs the book as well and tells Kashiwata that there's a hand sticking out from under his bed. Kashiwata looks at the hand and decides to check under the rest of the bed. Oda scolds her for doing something strange and tells her to sit on his bed, blaming the hand on his sister since she is always in his room. As he continues to complain about his sister, Kashiwata notices a paper sticking out from under his pillow. She pulls it out and realizes it's the New Year's card she had sent him. Oda gets embarrassed and tries to explain himself, but he only ends up getting nervous. He snatches it away from her hand and wonders how it got there when he was sure he had hidden it. Kashiwata continues searching under his pillows and finds the scarf she had given him. Oda turns red and suddenly exclaims that he doesn't want a girl in his room. Kashiwata points out that it was Oda who invited her. Oda struggles and comes up with an excuse, stating that he doesn't consider her a girl and that he really just wanted to surprise her. He tells her that to him, she's more like some kind of new animal. Kashiwata goes silent and stares at him blankly, but Oda notices that this expression is different from her usual blank look. He remembers seeing it before. It was lunchtime and Tadakoro had mentioned that he had never seen Kashiwata mad. Oda confidently offered to make her mad so they could see what she looked like. He walked up to her table, took the rice ball she was eating from her hands, and mocked her. Kashiwata had called him mean that day. And though her expression stayed the same, there was something dark behind it that made Oda suddenly feel fear. He ended up returning the rice ball without saying another word. Right now, Oda can't help but notice she's giving off the same vibe as that day. He realizes that Kashiwata is mad at him. After a few seconds of silence, he decides to admit that he went too far with his words. Oda didn't mean that he didn't see her as a girl in a mean way. What he meant was that she is more special than any other girl. Kashiwata feels warmth rise in her chest and turns to face him. Oda, still feeling guilty, takes something from a nearby drawer and hands it to her, saying that she can have it. Kashiwata looks at the small red car and realizes that this is Oda's treasure from when he was in preschool. Oda invites Kashiwata to get off the bed so they can finally start playing. Every time a zombie jumps out, Oda lets out a scream and Kashiwata begins to tremble in fear. But because her expression doesn't change, Oda has no idea she's scared. Instead, he complains that she's staring at him too much instead of watching the screen. On April Fool's Day, Oda tells Kashiwata that a meteor is going to hit her head at noon. While Tadokoro complains about how obviously fake the prank is, neither of them notices that Kashiwata actually believes it. Wanting to try a prank of her own, she tells Oda that she hates him, only for Oda to take the joke seriously. One spring day, Kashiwata stops to take photos of the blooming cherry blossoms. Tadokoro and Oda spot her before entering the school gates and Oda starts grinning mischievously. He tells Tadokoro that he noticed Kashiwata has been coming down to photograph the cherry blossoms every lunchtime. So he decided to prepare a pitfall trap for her. He's convinced that once she falls in, she'll freak out and call for help. Tadokoro complains that the plan is way too childish, but Oda insists that he put real effort into it this time. Kashiwata notices the two of them staring at her, so she rushes over and asks Oda if he also came to look at the cherry blossoms. Oda immediately denies it, while Tadokoro casually tells her that Oda's real interest is her. As Oda turns on Tadokoro in a burst of angry whispering, Kashiwata quietly lets the words sink in. She then invites both of them to view the cherry blossoms with her. Tadokoro instantly agrees, ignoring Oda's continued fury. Under Kashiwata's unwavering stare, Oda eventually gives in. Soon the three of them are sitting together on a picnic cloth as Kashiwata pours tea. She tells them this works out perfectly since she packed too much lunch today. When Kashiwata opens her lunchbox, Oda notices that it's filled entirely with beans and immediately asks if it's poisoned, telling Tadokoro to look closely, because Kashiwata absolutely seems like the type to poison things. Under her intense stare, Oda nervously picks up a single bean and takes a bite. A look of surprise flashes across his face. He quickly tries to hide it and claims the bean tastes terrible, even though he secretly likes it. Kashiwata and Tadokoro can both tell he's lying. Tadokoro takes a bean for himself and loudly exclaims that Oda is right because the beans taste really good. They return their attention to the cherry blossoms. Tadokoro comments on how beautiful the trees look in their school and reminds them that this will be their last spring here since they'll be graduating next year. Kashiwata's expression doesn't change, but she grows sad. The cherry blossoms had become her favorite spot. Tadokoro then teases Oda about his terrible grades, joking that he might not make it to graduation at all. As Oda argues back, he notices that Kashiwata has gone unusually quiet. He looks at her and can somehow feel she's upset about losing this viewing spot, so he tries to comfort her, telling her that there are plenty of other places to see cherry blossoms. He mentions that there's another spot that's even more impressive. Tadokoro immediately realizes he means the riverbank, agreeing enthusiastically since he also loves the cherry blossoms there. Oda adds that once Kashiwata graduates, she'll have to see the cherry blossoms there instead. Kashiwata suddenly stares at him intensely, which makes Oda uncomfortable. He tells her she's too close, and Kashiwata instantly withdraws. They both return their attention to the cherry blossoms. Other students around the school admire the scenery as well. Oda won't say it out loud, but he feels peaceful in this moment. Sada and Tabuchi eventually find them. Tamuchi immediately assumes Oda is bothering Kashiwata again and starts marching toward them while hurling threats. Tadokoro lightens the situation by offering beans that Kashiwata made to both Tabuchi and Sada. As Oda prepares to complain about Tabuchi, Kashiwata suddenly tugs on his sleeve. He looks at her curiously and she shyly asks if he would watch the cherry blossoms with her again next year. Oda turns bright red and freezes. While everyone else enjoys the beans, they suddenly realize Oda has disappeared. Kashiwata points toward the pitfall trap, and they see Oda's feet sticking out of the hole he originally dug for her. One day, Oda and Kashiwata suddenly switch bodies. Oda stares at himself and panics at the ridiculous manga-like situation they've landed in. He immediately wonders if this is karma from the ladybug he tried to put on Kashiwata's head earlier. He starts testing her body but quickly stops himself before going too far. Meanwhile, Kashiwata remains perfectly composed, which looks extremely strange given she's now in Oda's body. Students around them begin whispering. Realizing how bad things will get if the class figures it out, Oda tells Kashiwata they need to keep it a secret and act like each other until they can switch back. Kashiwata nods even though she doesn't fully understand why Oda finds the situation so embarrassing. Sada and Tadokoro approach them and Oda instinctively reacts like his usual self, completely forgetting he is supposed to be Kashiwata. The two boys notice that Kashiwata just showed a full range of emotions. Oda panics and tries to explain that he can show emotion if he feels like it. He accidentally refers to his actual body as Kashiwata, exposing their secret instantly. Tadokoro and Sada calmly accept the situation as if it's not even the strangest thing Oda has done. As Oda explains the body swap, Tadokoro bursts into laughter while Sada is stuck on how something like this is even possible. Tadokoro teases that this is perfect since Oda can now see all of Kashiwata's expressions, but Oda says it doesn't count if it's him making the expressions instead of Kashiwata reacting to his pranks. Tabuchi overhears them and faints on the spot. It's the first time she's ever heard Kashiwata speak in full sentences. Everyone stares at Tabuchi lying motionless and Oda immediately tells Kashiwata that they should run before she wakes up. During lunch break, before Oniwurata can dismiss the class, Oda bolts for the cafeteria, again forgetting he's in Kashiwata's body. Oniwurata calls out to Kashiwata. He then spots Oteng hiding between the lockers. At the end of the school day, Oda starts snooping through Kashiwata's desk. He finds a small pouch, opens it, and realizes she kept the old hair tie he once returned to her and his old toy car. Kashiwata catches him digging around, and Oda instantly denies that he saw anything. Suddenly, he hears Oniwurata scolding him for sleeping in class, and Oda jolts awake in his own body. He realizes the body swap was just a dream. Oniwurata then scolds Kashiwata too for sleeping with a ladybug on her head. The whole class laughs as she wakes up. Her eyes instantly seek out Oda. Oda wonders whether the two of them just had the exact same dream. One morning, as Oda is walking toward his classroom, Odajima spots him and suddenly confesses to him. Kashiwata and Tabuchi witness the confession, and Kashiwata just stares blankly at the scene. She moves to leave but accidentally trips. Kashiwata gets up, even though she's in pain. They notice Odajima bid Oda farewell before running off. Oda is confused about what just happened when Tadokoro and Sada approach him. They ask if Odajima really just confessed to him, but Oda doesn't even know who she is. Sada explains that she'll be part of their class this term. He points her out in the classroom. Tadokoro is surprised at how friendly she is and grumbles that of all people she's interested in Oka. Sada then notices that Kashiwata is also in their class again this year, which makes Oda smirk since it means he'll have more chances to get her to react. They also notice that Oniwurata will be their homeroom teacher. What they don't know is that Oniwurata is not thrilled to have Oda in his class again. He begins homeroom by informing them that the student store has been receiving complaints, and he reminds everyone to line up properly so they won't cause trouble for the staff. Oda notices that among his usual group, only Tabuchi ended up in a different class. He then spots her clinging to the doorframe, looking longingly at Kashiwata. Later, as students settle into the break, Odajima offers Ota a weirdly wrapped candy. Without waiting for him to accept, she pops it into his mouth. Kashiwata stares at their interaction blankly from her seat. After class, Odajima playfully covers Oda's eyes with her hands. Oda feels a stinging sensation and she teasingly admits she coated her hands with salt. When most students leave the classroom, Oda slams his hands on the desk, frustrated with Odajima's behavior, and walks out. His friends wonder if Odajima is some kind of sadist and if this is how she expresses affection. Their attention shifts to Kashiwata, who appears as cool as ever. What they don't know is that inside her, a wide mix of emotions is stirring. As Oda leaves, Odajima runs into him again in the hallway. He tries to get away from her, but she chases after him. Ever since Odajima confessed, he has noticed that he's barely seen Kashiwata. He's unaware that Kashiwata is actually running after them as well. Sada feels that something is off. He asks Tadokoro what he thinks of Odajima, because her behavior feels like she's after something. Sada then tells Tadokoro that he suspects Odajima might be trying to ruin Kashiwata's chances with Oda, or that she simply enjoys seeing Oda's reactions. Tadokoro takes an uneasy glance at the group and notices that Tabuchi has also joined the chase. By sunset, Oda confronts Odajima on the rooftop. He complains about her constantly chasing him around and demands to know what she wants from him. Odajima calmly asks whether Oda already likes someone. Oda nervously tries to deny having feelings for anyone, but in his panic, he slips up and accidentally mentions Kashiwata's name while trying to come up with an excuse. Odajima steps closer, saying that the reaction he just made was the best one she's seen all day. Oda stares at her confused. Odajima explains that she loves reading people, especially when their words and reactions don't match. She adds that she's been practicing and Oda always gives the best reactions whenever Kashiwata is involved, though she mispronounces her name as Kashiwagi. This irritates Oda and he angrily corrects her. As the two of them bicker, Sada and Tadokoro watch from a distance and come to the conclusion that Odajima is only interested in Oda's expressions. Sada concludes that Odajima probably understands that Oda has a crush on Kashiwata and will likely use it to her advantage. However, Odajima herself has completely misread the situation. She thinks Oda has a deep-seated hatred toward Kashiwata. Before Oda can argue further, Kashiwata suddenly approaches and tugs on his sleeve using a claw toy. Odajima walks past Oda and heads straight for Kashiwata. The two girls stare into each other's eyes, and Odajima suddenly declares that Kashiwata is actually very expressive. Oda can't believe what he just heard, but Odajima insists she can tell, just as Tabuchi arrives. The group soon begins to wonder how Odajima manages to read Kashiwata's emotions at all. Odajima doesn't reveal anything to the group, but promises Kashiwata that she'll stop chasing Ota around. Kashiwata, though her face remains emotionless, is clearly pleased and grateful to finally have someone who understands her. Ota, meanwhile, watches them in defeat. Odajima beams at his reaction, joking that he looks like he just stepped on something gross. Tadakoro wonders how she's so good at reading Kashiwata but completely off when it comes to Ota. During PE, Oda's class plays tennis. Oda is paired with Tadakoro while Sada keeps score. They glance over at Kashiwata and notice how poorly she's doing. As Oda sighs at the sight, Tamuchi suddenly grips his shoulder and challenges him to a match. If she wins, he has to stay away from Kashiwata. Oda's friends remember that Tabuchi is extremely skilled at tennis. They look between the two of them, intrigued by the tension. Odajima then wraps her arms around Kashiwata from behind and cheerfully invites her to play with her. Tabuchi is shocked and demands to know why Odajima is suddenly being friendly with Kashiwata. Odajima replies that it's only natural to be friendly with friends. Tabuchi stiffens, feeling her precious bond with Kashiwata crumbling as Odajima casually takes center stage. Sada tells her that Kashiwata can have more than one friend. Tabuchi runs up to Odajima, insisting it took her an entire year to become friends with Kashiwata. Odajima breezily responds that it only took her one day. Before a fight can break out, the PE instructor announces that the next activity will be a doubles match with Ota and Kashiwata versus Tabuchi and Odajima. Ota immediately protests the pairing, knowing how bad Kashiwata is at the sport. Tabuchi also dislikes the idea of going against Kashiwata, but decides she'll endure it for the chance to beat Ota. Before the match begins, Ota tells Kashiwata to leave the entire game to him, because she'll only drag him down. Odajima cheerfully tells Tabuchi that they should both try their best. Tabuchi watches her practice her swings and wonders if Odajima is actually skilled and only pretends to be an airhead. A pang of jealousy hits her as she remembers that Odajima can understand Kashiwata in ways she never could. She readies her serve, determined to win this match without relying on Odajima. Oda returns it with ease, and soon he and Tabuchi are locked in a fierce exchange. The ball keeps flying past Kashiwata and Odajima, who are both positioned near the front but never get to touch it. Oda's friends note that the match might as well be singles, with neither Oda nor Tabuchi willing to yield. Then Oda makes a mistake, his return goes too high. Tabuchi instantly sees the opening and smashes the ball toward the opposite court. Only when it's too late does she realize it's heading straight for Kashiwata. Oda manages to intercept it, but because he blocks a smash with poor form, he injures his wrist and falls to the ground. Once he gets up, he immediately scolds Kashiwata for being reckless and attempting to receive such a dangerous ball. Kashiwata pauses before replying that she only wanted to play with him since she felt uneasy about his earlier declaration. Oda realizes he had been inconsiderate. Before he can respond, Odajima suddenly raises her hand and declares that she wants to play too. The PE instructor intervenes, telling both Oda and Tabuchi that they're missing the entire point of doubles and must let their partners participate. With no other choice, Oda starts correcting Kashiwata's stance while his friends tease him from the sidelines. They take their positions again, and Tabuchi checks if Odajima is ready as well. Odajima confidently assures her that she's actually pretty strong and can handle the next serve. But as Odajima steps into the server's position, Tabuchi notices her expression sharpen until Odajima's serve hits her square on the head. Oda warns Kashiwata about Tabuchi's serves, but when Tabuchi hears that Kashiwata will be the receiver, she softens her serve considerably to make it easier. Even so, Kashiwata still misses, and no matter how late the serves or returns are, she keeps missing them. Odajima fares no better, and before long feels like Oda and Tabuchi are playing yet another singles match while their teammates scramble helplessly after the ball. Oda glances at the scoreboard and realizes Tabuchi needs only one more point to win the match. He serves, and Tabuchi fires back a strong return. Oda prepares to receive it, but a sharp pain shoots through his wrist from the earlier twist. Before he can react, Kashiwata suddenly steps in front of him and swings. For a moment, Oda is relieved until the ball bounces off her racket and smacks straight into him instead of crossing the net. He scolds her for pulling off something so impossible yet useless. Kashiwata, meanwhile, is quietly proud that she managed to hit the ball even once. Tabuchi decides to approach Odajima. Odajima assumes Tabuchi wants to hang out, but Tabuchi quickly denies it. She wants to ask how Odajima manages to read Kashiwata's completely expressionless face. Tabuchi admits she can read Kashiwata to an extent herself, but sometimes it's too difficult. Odajima tells her there isn't anything special to it, she just looks carefully. Tabuchi then asks Odajima to simply tell her what Kashiwata is thinking. Odajima agrees, and Tabuchi feels triumphant, certain she now has an advantage over Oda. Odajima suddenly notices Kashiwata tucked into a tiny gap beside the lockers. When Kashiwata opens her mouth, Odajima casually says it's just a yawn. Tabuchi then notices Kashiwata's eyebrows lift slightly, but Odajima explains she's simply fighting off sleep. Next, they see Kashiwata staring quietly at the sky. Tabuchi guesses she's pondering something deep and emotional, but Odajima says she's just hungry. Tabuchi collapses dramatically, accusing Odajima of making everything up, but Odajima encourages her to observe longer. Sure enough, Kashiwata's stomach rumbles a moment later. Then they notice Oda approaching Kashiwata with a caterpillar. Tabuchi groans, annoyed she hasn't rid herself of him even after winning the tennis match. Oda tries to sneak the caterpillar onto Kashiwata's shoulder, but Kashiwata abruptly turns. While Oda panics and tries to shake it off, Kashiwata watches him intently, and Tabuchi boldly declares she finally understands her expression. Clearly, Kashiwata hopes the caterpillar will devour Oda. Odajima only sighs. That's definitely not what Kashiwata is thinking, but she chooses not to reveal the truth, sensing that Kashiwata wants to keep her feelings private for now. They finally approach the group, and Odajima explains that Tabuchi asked for help interpreting Kashiwata's expressions. Oda immediately claims Odajima must be lying. He still doesn't believe she can actually read Kashiwata. He challenges her to tell him what Kashiwata is thinking right now. Odajima glances at Kashiwata, asking permission to reveal her thoughts. When Kashiwata gives his silent approval, Odajima reveals that Kashiwata is excited to be around Oda. She elaborates that it's all there in Kashiwata's quiet, passionate gaze, and that she's nervous. Oda immediately flushes bright red. Odajima points out how obvious his expression is, which flusters him even more. He insists Odajima is just teasing him to get a reaction. Kashiwata hides behind Odajima, and Odajima adds that Kashiwata also gets excited by food in tight spaces. For some reason, Oda blushes even harder. Odajima tries to ask why, but he panics and runs off. Kashiwata steps forward, staring at Odajima's face, and the two of them share a silent exchange that only they understand. Meanwhile, Tabuchi is still lying forgotten on the floor. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.